Map and compass. This work has at times been compared with a map and compass. A person is given a map and compass, neither of which they understand at first, then after a time they begin to realize one or two things, as for example, that personality must be rendered less active. We know that whatever is done through personality is done through the force of external circumstances. We think that we are active, however it's not us, it's personality. If life alone makes us react, then we are not truly free. External circumstances make great and small beings of us all. External circumstances drive every one of us, as different kinds of mechanisms, in this direction, or in that. However, the directions given by the map and compass of this work are not derived from external circumstances, because the work is another force, coming not from life, but from outside of life. The ideas of the work are not a set of new directions for life, but new directions for living in life. Let's take then the work idea, that we must aim to become man number 4, which is balanced man. Number 1 man is either moving or instinctive, number 2 man is emotional, and number 3 man is intellectual. All these are one-sided. One center predominates over the other centers. However, in balanced man, all the centers have a requisite development. Which means that man number 4 is all-sided, all sides of life are known and understood, at least to some extent. They are not someone that says, for example, oh, politics are all rot, or Greek and Latin are silly, emotion is hysteria, or sport should be abolished, religion is rubbish, science is fiction, what's the good of this or that, and so on. A balanced individual or someone aiming at balance knows that every aspect of life is necessary for development. They do not waste their time complaining about life and finding fault with it, because they realize that all of life is a school, and that is its real meaning. The fact that life is simply a means, and not an end in itself. At this point people often say, yes, but the work teaches that man has no will, so how can we alter anything at all? The work says that man has no real permanent will, because we have no real permanent I. However, it does also say that man has a small degree of will, comparable with the degree of freedom of movement that, say, a violin has in its case. But it will all depend upon in what direction we use the small will that we naturally have. If we never use it in connection with the directions given by the work, then we will not develop any further will. However, it is not possible to get this point of view aligned, unless one has the possibility of viewing our own life from the perspective of esoteric teaching, unless we see the necessity of inner development. An individual, viewing themselves as a result of personal self-observation, in the light of the directions given by this work, will recognize sooner or later where they are deficient, then seek purposefully what in life will help them in this regard, and be drawn to it willingly. They will not be following a life direction, but a direction in life, given them by the work. It will not be done through personality, through the force of external circumstances, from life ideas, but from their own insight into themselves, through internal circumstances created in them by thinking from work ideas. Everyone without exception is crossed in life. But if an individual in the work begins to reach the point of understanding that they must bear the burden of their own life, and begin to work on themselves, so as to change the self, then the whole situation is altered. Their choice of will then no longer lies in life, whether they smoke these or those cigarettes, drink this or that type of beer, etc. The small amount of will that we have must begin to turn in the direction given by the map and compass that the work offers. If people are still thinking from life, they say, why should we do this? Yet exactly here lies the beginning of the work with regard to effort. We can be the same person every day if we prefer, or we can wish to be different. We can go on submitting to negative emotions, identifying, becoming irritated and angry at everyone, justifying ourselves from life ideas, and so on, or on the other hand, we can begin to think from work ideas, and apply a little choice. If we sincerely evaluate the work, and desire to make the choice for it, for its meaning and teaching, then the small amount of energy gained will pass into deputy steward, or even towards the essential in us, the real person within, strengthening and perhaps opening up for a moment, at least a certain happiness that is internal, and very quiet. Let's take for example an individual following the directions of the work in life, and not the directions of life only, a person living and willing the work in life. Let's take the example of a person so placed in difficulty that they cannot change their outer circumstances. What then can they change? They can change their attitude to it, their way of taking life. P.D. Ouspensky wrote about karma yoga in The New Model of the Universe, where karma means roughly fate, and the yoga refers to those who, by fate, cannot change their outer circumstances. Everyone in this work must to some extent practice this yoga, which is that of non-identifying. The work is not karma yoga, but karma yoga is part of this work, part of the fourth way. Remember that commentaries noted here are written to illustrate what it means to follow new direction in life, and not life directions, not the hypnotism of our daily life. Karma yoga teaches right living. Karma yoga is the yoga of activity, where it teaches the right relation towards people, and right action in the ordinary circumstances of life. Karma yoga is always connected with the aim of inner development, of our inner improvement. It helps a person not to fall asleep inwardly, amidst the entangling influences of life, particularly in the midst of the hypnotizing influence of activity. It makes us remember that nothing external has any significance, that everything must be done without being proprietary about outcomes. Without karma yoga, people become absorbed in the nearest, the visible aims and forget the chief aim. Karma yoga teaches us to change our fate, to direct it at will. According to the fundamental idea of karma yoga, this is attained only by altering our inner attitude towards things, and towards our own actions. The exact same action can be performed differently, one and the same event can be lived differently, so that if an individual alters their attitude towards what happens to them, this will, in the course of time, inevitably change the nature of the events they encounter along the way. Karma yoga teaches us to understand that when it seems to us that we ourselves are acting, in reality it is not us who acts, but only a power passing through us. Karma yoga asserts that an individual is not at all what they think themselves to be, and teaches us to understand that only in very rare cases do we really act of ourselves independently, that in most cases we act only as a part of one or another greater whole. This is the occult side of karma yoga, the teaching concerning forces and laws which govern us all. Someone who understands the ideas of karma yoga feels all the time that they are but a tiny screw, or a tiny cog in some big machine, and that the success or failure of what we think we are doing depends very little upon our own actions. Acting and feeling in this way, an individual can never meet with failure in anything, because the greatest failure, the greatest unsuccess, may actually further the success of our inner work on self, in our inner struggle, if we could only find the right attitude towards this apparent misfortune. A life governed by the principles of karma yoga differs greatly from an ordinary life. In ordinary life, no matter what the conditions might be, the chief aim consists usually of avoiding all unpleasantries, difficulties, and discomforts, as far as this is humanly possible. This is the worm, the bug in mankind. Reacting just as a snail would to some lemon juice, or salt placed on the side of a dish upon which it moves. In a life governed by the principles of karma yoga, one does not seek to avoid unpleasantries or discomforts. On the contrary, we welcome them, for these afford us the opportunity of overcoming challenges. From the point of view of karma yoga, if life offered no difficulties, it would be necessary to create them artificially. Therefore, the difficulties that are met with in life are regarded not as something unpleasant, which we must try to avoid, but as useful conditions that foster the aims of inner work, our inner development. When an individual realizes this, and feels it constantly, then life itself becomes the teacher. The chief principle of karma yoga is non-attachment. A person who follows the methods of karma yoga must practice non-attachment always and in everything, whether to good or to evil, to pleasure or to pain. Non-attachment does not mean indifference. It is a certain kind of separation of self from what happens, or from what a person is doing. It is not coldness, nor is it the desire to shut oneself off from life. It is the recognition and the constant realization that everything is done according to certain laws, that everything in the world, absolutely everything, has its own fate. From an ordinary point of view, following the principles of karma yoga appears as fatalism. However, it is not fatalism, in the sense of accepting the exact and unalterable preordination of everything, without the possibility of any change whatsoever. On the contrary, karma yoga teaches how to change our fate, how to influence its outcomes. From the point of view of karma yoga, this influencing is an entirely inner process. Karma yoga teaches that a person may change the people and events around them, simply by changing their attitude towards these people and things. The idea of it is very clear. For every individual from the moment of their birth is surrounded by a certain karma, by certain people and by certain events. In accordance with their nature, education, tastes and habits, they adopt a certain definite attitude towards things, toward people and events. As long as this attitude remains unchanged, then people, things and events also remain unchanged, corresponding to their karma. We live the life that we create. But if we are not satisfied with our fate, if we want something new and unexpected, then we must change our attitude towards what we have, and then new events will arise. Karma yoga is the only way possible for people who are tied to life, who are unable to free themselves from the external forms of their lives, for people who either through birth, or through their own powers and capacities, are placed at the head of human communities and groups, for people who are connected with the progress of the life of humanity, for historical personages, for people whose personal life seems to be the expression of the life of an epoch or a nation. These people cannot change themselves visibly, they can change themselves only inwardly, while externally remaining the same as before, saying the same things, doing the same things. But without attachment, as actors on the stage. Having become such actors with regard to their life, they become yogis in the midst of the most varied and intense activity. There can be peace in their soul, whatever their troubles might be. Their thought can work without hindrance, independent of anything that may surround it. Karma yoga gives freedom to the prisoner in a jail, and to the king on a throne, if only they can feel that they are actors playing a role. This example is given to show how an individual can follow new directions in life, and so live their life under other laws, while remaining within ordinary life. The work is a set of new directions for living life. These directions come from a distant source, they come from conscious humanity, from those at a level far above our own level. In terms of the side octave of the sun, they come from those who have reached the level of being and understanding, of conscious awareness represented physically by the solar octave. All those who have thus evolved have left memorials behind them in teachings, parables, and other directions, for those still imprisoned on earth. These constitute the map and compass, the chart, the secret instructions and in our case, the work itself. If we follow these directions, if we think from the ideas of the work, then we are no longer driven by life, even though we may still be living in life.